Ashraaq here. Today's video is going to be on another hobby that I'm very passionate about, model railroading. Model railroading or model trains concerns with modeling of railway scenes, locomotives, rolling stock, landscape, buildings if you will, in scale. Now this is a model railway locomotive. It's a Hornby model of a Eurostar locomotive. The Eurostar runs between the UK and France in the Channel Tunnel. There are British models, there are European models, Japanese models, American models. It's a very diverse hobby, and even in Sri Lanka we have over 100 known model railroad aficionados here, and we have a club called the Model Rail Association, of which I am a part, to bring them together, share knowledge, that kind of thing. So I've been a model train buff for over 25 years, and for the majority of that my trains were in boxes packed, and I would take them out on maybe a Sunday or a holiday, lay out all the tracks on the floor and have a good playing session with them, put them back and then wait for the next occasion to present itself. However, it's much nicer to have a permanent layout. That said, you need some space for that. For example, my permanent layout which I now have in my house is 6 feet by 7 feet in size. It's in the storeroom, which was very graciously given to me by my wife. She allowed me to clear out the storeroom and put all my model trains in there, which works really well because I can just be there undisturbed. It's not dusty, it doesn't get exposed to weather or excess sunlight, none of that. So it's just perfect, Other common places for there to be model railroad layouts are in basements, garden sheds, attics. One guy who's got a model railroad in his attic and has a famous YouTube channel is Sam's Trains, and I'd recommend you to follow him because I've learned a lot from Sam's Trains. So this video is going to talk about how I set up my model railroad layout in my house. It's not a definitive guide because there are many ways to go about it. I'm not saying my way is the right way or the only way, it's just the way I did it and the way things turned out fine. Feel free to take what you can from my video. From now on I'll be showing you photos plus short video clips of my model railroad journey, which I chronicled every step of, accompanied by voiceover, which will help you understand what's going on there. So this is the room I started off with, the storeroom. It actually has a corridor going through it. The usable area for my layout is 6 feet by 7 feet. I started off by cleaning the room, the floor, the walls, everything. I also rewired a plug point for it, which is not visible in this shot. After the room was ready, I decided it was time to start planning track layouts. That I did by drawing track layouts in a notepad using the track pieces that I actually had from my layouts and which I had collected over the years. The codes there are R609, R600, all that are Hornby track codes because I'm using Hornby track. So this allowed me to get a rough idea of what kind of layout I could accommodate in the room because I already knew the lengths and the curve radii of each piece of track. 609s are third radius curves for the outer loop, 607s are second radius curves for the inner loop, and 8073, 8072 are points or turnouts if you will. Of course, depending on the brand of track that you are using, all this will vary. Once I had done this, I set up some track on the floor itself to see how much track could be fitted into the room. Here you will note a black tape line on the floor which marks the corridor, and I didn't want tracks to go too close to that so that if people were walking through the corridor they couldn't accidentally bump into the layout or any rolling stock. As you can see, it's a very makeshift operation. Let's have a look at a video of things running as well. Here you can see my Flying Scotsman on an elevated section that I put just for kicks. You can see how it's running in this configuration. Next, it was time to start planning the boards, and how I did that is I drew these 4 boards on paper with the dimensions in inches. The reason for that is because I wanted there to be a central well, if you will, where I would sit and operate the layout. All this will become much clearer as we progress here, but for now these are the 4 boards which assemble together to create my layout. Those little wooden blocks at the bottom are legs for each board, which once again the purpose will become obvious later in this video. Now what I did is I went to an auction house and bought 4 identical computer tables to use to keep the boards on top of. The reason for that is for identical tables meant the heights would be exactly the same and I wouldn't need to worry about having to adjust for height. You can use tables like this, you can use wall brackets, you can use whatever you like really. You can make your own custom tables out of wood, aluminum. It's up to you really. Like I said in the introduction, this is just how I did it. Next, I went to a wood shop, got the boards cut and used my wife's Suzuki Wagon-R with seats folded down to bring the boards home, which was quite useful because some of these boards are quite long. As you can probably see, I've folded the front and rear seats down to accommodate them. Now, the boards have been kept upside down on the tables and you can see those blocks that I mentioned. The purpose of the blocks is to elevate the boards from the tables so that I have about 3/4 of an inch space between the boards and the tables. Now this is useful because you need to pass wires through the boards. Wires for electrical power to the track, wires for your lighting, wires for any functioning signals or point motors or anything electrical really. Having that gap means that your wires can easily be passed through, which would otherwise be impossible if you kept the boards straight on the table, unless you're willing to drill through the boards and the table and end up with a lot of holes in your tables. This way, my boards are the only thing I drill through, and then I use a long thin stick or something to pull the wires through where I can manage them with my hands and connect them and do the needful. Now here you can see the boards have been turned the right way up. You can see that they are pretty level and you can also see how they fit together. The reason for that is if I ever do choose to take my layout to an exhibition or need to relocate it somewhere else, it's just a matter of, disconnecting the tracks and taking the boards myself. So this is the first track layout that I ended up with. 2 loops, some sidings, a passing loop with a drop-off point for my Hornby operating mail coach, which I will be showing you in another video, and another siding where the main station would be. But I wasn't quite satisfied with this, I wanted a bit more track. So this is what I ended up with. I brought 2 tracks from the siding a bit further so that they would form a future branch line station. Those little things you see in the distance there are uncoupling ramps. Now this is how it looks from another angle, and you can also see that I've added a passing loop and taken off that 3rd siding. The passing loop is where my Hornby operating mail coach pickup point is, and I put a passing loop there because then trains can be going on the main line without fouling the mechanism installed in the track to operate that pickup point. It has a little mechanism in the track which sometimes rolling stock with low couplings tends to catch on. That's content for another video. Also, those uncoupling ramps I spoke to you about, which you can see, are pretty neat because if you stop a train over them in just the right spot between 2 coaches, they'll push up the couplings from below and you can just drive the train away and have the rear half of the train uncoupled. Now this is when I was planning the main station. I was using my Hornby Eurostar because it swings out quite a bit on curves, so I needed to make sure that none of the train would hit the platform because the tight constraints of my layout mean that the train comes out of a curve straight into the main station and then heads into a curve again. Real modelers wouldn't have this issue because for one thing they'd have much more space than me and they'd be a bit more careful in planning once again because of the space. But here I had to make do with the space and I wanted a main station, so I thought I'm going to have a main station, lose a bit of realism for a bit of, having a main station. Next, it was time to build a small branch line station, and for that I had to get a bit creative. So these are some of the materials I used, and this is the end result. The brick effect on the sides is none other than printed on paper and laminated and stuck to the edges of the box which I used for this. The roof is made from duct tape which was painted brown, and those 2 street lights, if you will, were purchased from Daraz, and I think they're still there. You just got to search around a bit for them. Type HO scale model train or 00 scale model train, something like that. Play with your keywords and you should be able to find them. Now let's see how things look in a video. So you can see my Hornby class 47 is coming down the tracks there. The lights on it were installed by me as well. First time I ever drilled a locomotive body with a Dremel, which was quite nerve-wracking, but I did it. And you can see how the station looks. I must say I'm quite happy with that. Next, it was time to give the station a fence, which I made from colorful ice lolly sticks. Let's have a look at the fence from another angle. Here we are. You can see that I've ballasted the tracks and added some rocks and a bit of grass mat for extra effect as well. There goes the class 47 with a class 8 shunter in the siding. So this is how the layout looks, and this is how it looked around the beginning of 2022. I haven't done a great deal on it yet, mainly because, well, I'm a father now and a kid does take up a fair amount of time, but I do run trains every now and then. Got plenty of plans for more things, some of which you can see in the distance have yet to be developed, and I've also got some new controllers coming along, which is content for a future video. So there you are. That is how I was able to build my model rail layout in my house, and I hope that I've inspired some of you who are watching this video, if you are a model train enthusiast, to actually get down and build your layout, because those first steps are the hardest. Trust me, when starting this YouTube channel, it took me so long to want to get everything perfect here, there, get the right equipment, all that, until one day my wife just said, just get started, you know, just do something, get something going. And it's the same thing with model railroading. When I set up my permanent layout, I didn't have some of the things on it that I have now, but I got started. So I hope I've inspired you to get started. Go about it how you like, but do your research and don't be afraid to ask questions. All the best.